What happens when the man once regarded as the most powerful politician in Israel, the leader who survived wars, political scandals, corruption investigations, and countless crises, suddenly finds himself closer than ever to losing everything? In just a matter of days, Benjamin Netanyahu has been hit by three major blows: growing tensions with Donald Trump, a governing coalition threatening to collapse from within, and political rivals who believe they finally have a chance to end his decades-long dominance. But here's the most important question. Could the very wars Netanyahu believed would strengthen his grip on power now be pushing him toward political downfall? Has Israel's self-proclaimed Mr. Security begun losing the one asset that kept him in power for so long? There is an unwritten rule in Israeli politics. A prime minister can make mistakes. A prime minister can survive protests. A prime minister can even endure corruption investigations. But what Israeli voters rarely forgive is making the country feel less secure. And that is precisely why Benjamin Netanyahu may be entering the most dangerous phase of his political career. After more than 17 years in power across multiple terms, Netanyahu has carefully built an image of himself as the only leader capable of protecting Israel from its enemies. That message helped him win election after election. However, in 2026, cracks are beginning to appear in that carefully crafted image. The latest crisis emerged as Israel considered expanding military operations against Hezbollah in Lebanon. At the same time, Washington was attempting to preserve diplomatic negotiations with Iran and prevent a broader regional war. The White House showed increasing concern about any escalation that could derail ongoing diplomatic efforts. According to multiple American media reports, President Donald Trump exerted significant pressure on the Israeli government to avoid military actions that could push the region into a wider conflict. While details of conversations between Trump and Netanyahu remain disputed, the outcome appears clear. Israel ultimately refrained from pursuing some of the more aggressive military options that had reportedly been under consideration. From a military perspective, this may have been a tactical adjustment. Politically, however, the consequences were far more significant. For many Israelis, particularly those on the political right, the image of a prime minister altering course after pressure from Washington is deeply uncomfortable. Netanyahu's opponents quickly seized on the opportunity. Former Prime Minister Naftali Bennett, who is increasingly viewed as one of the strongest contenders in a future election, intensified criticism of the current government, arguing that it has failed to achieve its stated security objectives. Meanwhile, politicians from both the center and the right accused Netanyahu of allowing Israel to become increasingly dependent on American decisions in matters of national security. Yet external pressure is only part of the story. The greater threat may be coming from within Netanyahu's own coalition. At the heart of the crisis lies one of the most controversial issues in Israeli politics: military service exemptions for the ultra-Orthodox Jewish community, commonly known as the Haredim. Since Israel's founding in 1948, large numbers of ultra-Orthodox men have been exempt from military service in order to pursue religious studies. For decades, this arrangement remained relatively stable, but demographics have changed dramatically. The ultra-Orthodox population has grown rapidly, while Israel's military faces increasing demands as conflicts continue across multiple fronts. As a result, more and more Israelis are asking a simple question: why should their children serve and fight while tens of thousands of ultra-Orthodox citizens remain exempt? In 2024, Israel's Supreme Court ruled that the legal framework supporting broad military exemptions could no longer continue in its existing form. That decision forced the government to search for a new solution. Netanyahu attempted to balance competing interests. He needs the ultra-Orthodox parties to maintain a parliamentary majority. At the same time, he needs support from the broader Israeli public. It is a political equation with no easy answer. As regional tensions increased and military requirements expanded, the pressure only intensified. Religious parties demanded the preservation of broad exemptions. Meanwhile, much of the Israeli public argued that all citizens should share the burden of national defense. The result has been growing instability within Netanyahu's coalition. In recent weeks, ultra-Orthodox parties have repeatedly threatened to withdraw support or back measures that could trigger early elections. Several parliamentary initiatives have already raised the possibility of dissolving the Knesset before its scheduled term ends. For Netanyahu, this represents a serious political danger. Recent polling suggests that the coalition currently supporting him may struggle to secure a majority. If elections were held today, multiple surveys indicate that a significant portion of the Israeli public would prefer a different leadership direction. Yet perhaps the greatest challenge facing Netanyahu is not polling data. It is the changing perception of voters. For years, Netanyahu's political brand rested on a simple promise: trust me and Israel will be safer. But since the Hamas attacks of October 7th, 2023, that promise has come under increasing scrutiny. Although Israel has conducted major military campaigns in Gaza, Lebanon, and Iran-related theaters, many strategic objectives remain incomplete. Hamas has not disappeared from Gaza. Hezbollah continues to maintain substantial military capabilities. Negotiations involving Iran remain ongoing and unresolved. This has created a political paradox. Netanyahu invested much of his career in expanding Israel's security doctrine and emphasizing military strength as the cornerstone of national policy. Yet the prolonged nature of these conflicts has led many voters to question whether that strategy is delivering the results they were promised. Meanwhile, Donald Trump has his own priorities. The White House is not focused solely on Israel's security. It is also seeking to avoid a broader regional war that could damage global markets, disrupt energy supplies, and create political risks for the United States. For that reason, Washington has repeatedly attempted to restrain escalation from both Israel and Iran, and this is where the interests of Trump and Netanyahu may begin to diverge. Netanyahu needs to project strength to Israeli voters. Trump needs to project control to American voters. Those goals do not always align. The biggest question now is what happens if Israel moves toward an early election. Naftali Bennett is emerging as a serious challenger. Several former military and security officials are exploring political opportunities. Centrist parties hope that public fatigue from years of conflict could create momentum for change. Of course, declaring Netanyahu's political career over would be a mistake. He has repeatedly defied predictions of his downfall and returned stronger than expected. Few politicians anywhere in the world possess his remarkable survival instincts. However, this time may be different. For the first time in years, Netanyahu is not facing pressure from just one direction. He is being squeezed from all sides. Pressure from Washington, discontent within his coalition, unfavorable polling numbers, and perhaps most importantly, growing doubts among the very voters who once viewed him as the ultimate guardian of Israeli security. Can Netanyahu once again engineer a political comeback? Or are we witnessing the opening chapters of the end of an era for the man who dominated Israeli politics for nearly 2 decades? The answer may emerge within the coming months. And when it does, it may determine not only Netanyahu's future, but also the future direction of Israel and the broader Middle East. Thank you for following this story. If you found it interesting, please subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and share it. For now, this is goodbye. Thank you for staying with Societale Stories.